Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to our video about World War II. World War II didn't just erupt out of nowhere in 1939. It was the result of years of tension, broken promises, and aggressive actions by powerful nations. So, in this video, we will present what might be the most deadliest war in human history, starting with explaining simply what might be the cause for the war. So after World War I, the Treaty of Versailles imposed harsh penalties on Germany. It lost territory, was forced to disarm, and had to accept full responsibility for the war, including paying massive reparations. So this humiliated Germany, it devastated its economy and fueled resentment. So many Germans, including a man named Adolf Hitler, saw the treaty as a national betrayal. Out of this chaos, totalitarian leaders rose to power. In Germany, Hitler and the Nazi Party promised to restore national pride, rebuild the military, and defy the Treaty of Versailles. In Italy, Benito Mussolini led a fascist regime that glorified war and expansion. Meanwhile, in Japan, militaries took control of the government and decided to pursue imperial ambitions across Asia. So all three powers rejected democracy and silenced opposition and wanted to expand their empire by force. Then Germany began to take land. First the Rhineland, then Austria, then later Czechoslovakia. And each time, Britain and France chose appeasement, giving in to avoid conflict. The most famous example being the 1938 Munich Agreement, where the British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain allowed Hitler to take the Sudetenland, hoping that it would be his last demand, but it only encouraged future aggression. The League of Nations, created to keep peace after World War I, failed to stop aggressions. When Japan invaded Manchuria in 1931, or when Italy attacked Ethiopia in 1935, the League did very little. It had no real army, and member countries weren't willing to risk another war. This weakness encouraged aggressive nations to keep pushing the limits. Finally, in September 1939, Hitler invaded Poland. This time, France and Britain had had enough. They declared war on Germany on September 3, 1939, and World War II had officially begun. So the causes of World War II weren't just about one invasion. They were actually rooted in unresolved issues from World War I, economic hardships, the rise of dictators, and the world's inability to stop them in time.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Aisha Norikic, my magic number is 2021912, and I'm going to talk about major events and turning points that happened in the World War II. So let's start with the Blitzkrieg, which was also known as the Lightning War. It was a method of offensive warfare that was responsible for the military success of Nazi Germany in the early years of the Second World War. So in the 1939, Germany invaded and captured Poland using the Blitzkrieg method. And then from 9 May until 22nd June, Germany assaulted Northwest Europe, known as the Battle of France. It ended up capturing not just France, but Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg as well. And then the next one we have the Battle of Britain. That was a series of aerial clashes between Royal Air Force and the German Luftwaffe. It happened from July until October 1940, and it was the first major campaign that was fought completely in the air and resulted with the Royal Air Force successfully defending Britain from the Germany Air Force. Okay, so the next one we have Operation Barbarossa, that was named after the Holy Roman Emperor Friedrich Barbarossa, and that was invasion of Germany on Soviet Union that was launched on 22nd June 1941. Operation Barbarossa became largest and costliest military offensive in history, with around 10 million combatants in the early phase of the invasion and around 8 million casualties by the end of invasion on 5th December 1941. The invasion was not successful due to poor planning and logistical issue, and also because German soldiers got caught in the harsh Russian winter. However, the invasion marked a major escalation in the World War II and also opened Eastern Front, which became one of the largest and deadliest war land in history, and also brought Russia to the Allied powers. One of the major events that happened in the World War II was also famous Pearl Harbor. That was a surprise military strike of the Imperial Japanese Navy that happened on 7 December 1941 at the US Naval Base in Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. And this strike was a key event that led to United States to formally join World War II. The next one, we have some major battles that happened during the World War II, such as Battle of Stalingrad that happened from July 1742 until February 2nd, 43. It was a successful defense of Stalingrad. It also stopped the further invasion of Soviet Union by Germany and also marked the turning tide of the war in the favors of the Allies. The next one, we have El Alamein battles, linked battles that happened from 1st to 27 July and then October 23rd until November 11 in the 1942, pitting German and Italian forces against British, Australian, New Zealander, South African and Indian forces in coastal central Egypt, resulting in pivotal victory of the Allied forces. And then the next famous battle was the Battle of Midway. That was a naval engagement in the Pacific theater of the World War II, happened from 4 to 7 June 42, where US Navy decisively defeated Imperial Japanese Navy near Midway Atoll, which was a strategic point that turned the balance of the power in the Pacific theater. At the end, Germany surrendered in 1945 when United States, Great Britain, France and Soviet Union occupied the country, while the United States took control over the Japan that also surrendered earlier. So that is all from me. Thank you so much.
Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. My name is Sabatul Aslamia bint Nur Hazam, metric number 2328694. In this video, I will talk about what life was like during World War II and during Holocaust. We will focus on how the war affected ordinary people at home, under occupation, and in one of the darkest events in history, the Holocaust. First, life on the home front. During World War II, many countries were fighting, and most resources like food, clothes, and fuel were sent to the soldiers. So, government introduced something called rationing. This means families receive a small amount of foods and goods. For example, in Britain, people used coupons to buy things like sugar, meat, and even soup. It was hard, but people accepted it because they wanted to help their country. Next, propaganda was used to influence people. Governments made posters, movies, and radio messages that encouraged citizens to support the war. These messages often said things like work hard, save food, and stay strong. Also, many women played a very important role. When the men went to fight, women started working in factories, offices, and even in the army. They bought weapons, drove trucks, and worked as nurses. This changed the way people saw women, and it helped lead to more rights for women after the war. Moving on to the occupation and resistance. During the war, Nazi Germany took control of many countries in Europe. Life under Nazi occupation was very hard. People lost their freedom. Some were not allowed to go to school or work, and many lived in fear. There were soldiers in the streets, curfews at night, and anyone who spoke out could be arrested or killed. But even in these hard times, many brave people resisted the Nazis. These were called resistance movements. In France, for example, the Maquis destroyed bridges and helped Allied soldiers. In Poland, people printed secret newspapers and helped Jews escape. Even though it was dangerous, the resistance group kept fighting for freedom. Now we come to one of the most painful parts of World War II, the Holocaust. This was the time when millions of Jewish people and other minority groups were targeted and killed by the Nazis. The Nazis believed in these ideas. They blamed Jews for Germany's problems and wanted to remove them from society. At first, Jews were forced to wear yellow stars and live in poor areas called ghettos. They were not allowed to go to schools, parks, or shops. Later, the Nazis sent millions of people to concentration camps. These were not normal prisons. In camps like Auschwitz, people were treated very badly. Many died from hunger, disease, and cruel treatment. The Nazis had a plan called the Final Solution. This was a secret plan to kill all the Jews in the Europe. More than 6 million Jews were murdered. This event is called a genocide, and it's one of the biggest crimes in human history. It is important for us to remember the Holocaust so we can fight against the hate and racism in our world today. Moving on to the impact on civilians of the World War II. It didn't just hurt soldiers, it changed life for civilians all around the world. In Britain, the cities were bombed by Germany in what is called the Blitz. Families hid in underground shelters to stay safe, and many buildings were destroyed. Children were even sent to live in the countryside, away from the cities. In Japan, the war ended in a very tragic way. In 1945, the United States dropped atomic bombs on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The explosions destroyed the cities and killed more than 100,000 people. Many who survived suffered from radiation sickness for years. These bombings helped end the war, but they also showed the terrible power of nuclear weapons. To conclude my part, we explored what life was really like during World War II, not just for soldiers but for ordinary people. We saw how families faced rationing and bombings, how women took on new roles, and how brave individuals resisted the Nazis. Most heartbreakingly, we learned about the Holocaust, one of the darkest chapters in human history. These stories show us that war impacts everyone in every corner of life. In the next part, we'll continue with how the war came to an end and the lasting effects it left on the world.
By 1944, World War II was starting to come to an end. The Allies were pushing back the Axis forces, and a final series of events would change the world forever. Let's take a look at how the war ended and what came after. On June 6, 1944, the Allies launched a massive invasion of Nazi-occupied France known as D-Day. Over 150,000 soldiers landed on the beaches of Normandy. It was risky, but it worked. The Germans were caught off guard. This was a major turning point. Within weeks, Paris was freed and the Allies began pushing into Germany from the west. At the same time, Soviet forces were coming in from the east. Fast forward to April 1945. Berlin was under attack. The Soviet army surrounded the city, and German defenses were collapsing. Inside a bunker, Adolf Hitler realized it was over. He died by suicide on April 30. Just days later, Germany officially surrendered. May 8, 1945 became known as VE Day or Victory in Europe Day. People all over Europe and the US celebrated the end of the war in Europe. But the war wasn't completely over yet. In the Pacific, Japan was still fighting to avoid a long and bloody invasion. The US made a controversial decision. They dropped two atomic bombs, one on Hiroshima on August 6 and another on Nagasaki on August 9. The destruction was massive. Over 100,000 people were killed and many more were affected by radiation. Japan finally surrendered on August 15, 1945, ending the war completely. World War II was the deadliest conflict in history. Between 70 and 85 million people died. That is around 3% of the world's population at the time. Cities were destroyed. Entire countries were left in ruins, and millions of people were left homeless. The war also caused massive displacement, especially in Eastern Europe. And of course, the Holocaust left deep emotional and cultural scars, with survivors trying to rebuild their lives. After the war, the world knew it had to change. In 1945, the United Nations was created to help prevent future global conflicts. But peace didn't last long. Tensions quickly grew between the US and the Soviet Union. They had totally different views on politics and economics, which led to the start of the Cold War. At the same time, some Nazi leaders were put on trial in what became known as the Nuremberg trials. For the first time, leaders were held responsible for war crimes, especially for their role in the Holocaust. The end of the World War II didn't just stop the fighting, it reshaped the entire world. Its effects are still felt today in international politics, global alliances, and how we understand justice and human rights.